to thank everybody for coming today, making the time out of your day. We're all time poor, to perhaps look at what's in the education landscape. So we've got two people to share on that today, A1 and A2. So A1 is Zucchini from Fortinet, and he'll fill us in and tell us a little bit about what Fortinet has coming up in their roadmap, but also what they've found to be working really well in the technology space for education and elsewhere. So that'll be quite informative. But A2 will begin, which is Al Kepper from Laminar, and he'll speak to some of the things that we found in education with our clients, some of the challenges, etc., that have come up, and that'll precede what, A1 from Fortinet will share, and then Al will come back on again later and just talk about, suggested strategies, some of the things that we know have been working with our education clients around Fortinet and how Laminar perhaps can resolve some of those challenges that are coming up. Now, I'll hand over to you, A2.
Thanks, David. And for those of you who know Laminar, you'll probably notice David is a new Laminar person. So again, welcome to Laminar, David, and thanks for hosting the webinar.
Thank you.
So, so we've covered off the agenda, and if we go to the next slide, that's it. Every year I take it upon myself to visit our clients, not all of them, but a subset in each of the sectors they operate in, and this is all about K-12 schools, and the clients I visited gives me some insight as to what their organisations are going through and what's happening on the ground, so to speak. Gives me a barometer. From that, I can make sure our organisation is meeting the needs of our clients. What I noticed, in my discussions this year is kind of three things. First of all, not everyone, but a lot of schools are faced with a really fast-paced environment. That is, with their infrastructure, the change, technological pressure from things like AI, cybersecurity, etc. So it's the pace that stood out to me as a struggle for many clients, and they're typically small teams, especially when compared to their corporate counterparts, but also struggling with diminishing budgets in some cases. So with that budget pressure, small teams, and a fast pace, that results in a pressure. Some of that pressure comes from within their own organisations as well. I'm seeing that the compliance management, the compliance risk, managing student data, etc., is another thing weighing on their mind. And the third thing I noticed is that there is this general view that there's this lack of visibility across their infrastructure of what's going on, and there's also a growing gap in the expertise around the developing AI and emerging technologies and what they have today. So with that, if we go to the next slide, Marta, please. If I take a step back, years ago when we started out building cybersecurity infrastructure for schools, we really only had to do three things. We created a smart network design, to limit or to mitigate risks around a hack or people getting onto the network. We just needed to put a good firewall in place, and then just set up some solid authentication controls. And that would generally be all the things we would do. Sure, there's things around the fringes, but they were the three fundamental things we used to do. However, things have changed dramatically, when we fast forward to today. The volume of data has increased dramatically. The number of devices, applications running around the school today, and some of those, I call it the human rush to trust. There's this rush to implement these new things, sometimes outside ICT control. But however, the expectations of control and management still falls on ICT. And there's this gap, I think, that's slowly growing. If we can just take the next slide. And the way I look at it is, I think there are some schools that are in a store and they know the outside world is changing. They're keeping things going, they're keeping the lights on, but I just get this sense there is this gap that's growing between where they need to be and where they are now, and that gap is expanding quietly. It's like people don't want to talk about it almost. They know the threat landscape is changing, but day-to-day operations don't have much room to make a change or room to act. They don't have the budget. People won't listen to them from upstairs, that sort of thing. Some of them may even have some of the great security tools in place, but I'm seeing that some organisations don't have the expertise to operate those tools, and so they just don't get looked at in some cases. The compliance regulations or the compliance obligations are tightening as well, especially around data governance. And I'm seeing in some organisations that that's not being looked at, or they're not talking about it internally, and therefore it doesn't get dealt with. And of course, the adoption of AI tech amongst staff and students is racing off at a huge rate of knots. Even in the IT team, some of them are doing things which are really interesting. However, there doesn't seem to be a framework of governance around its use. And some are better than others, I think, but there is, again, this lack of control that is emerging. Next slide. So I see there's 4 challenges that faces schools today, especially with ICT. One of the things that's popping up a lot is how can we use AI in education? I'm seeing some schools on the front foot. I've talked to one school that's developing an AI system for learning management, but also delivering learning content to students. So it's an AI agentic team setup, and I would see them being more on that front foot of developing an education system around AI and turning the process of delivery of it, testing and all sorts of things, into a more controlled, but also I guess repeatable content delivery. I'm also seeing an issue around protecting student data being more and more talked about. Of course, there's all sorts of governance and rules that schools have to comply with. And I see that as a challenge for many schools. I'll talk about an instance in a moment, but I just see that as a general issue. Schools dealing with shadow IT, how do we control that? And one of the challenges there is many schools don't have auditable logs on what's going on, so they can't report, they can't measure, they can't control. And this data governance thing pops up a lot, and there's compliance regulations that are coming and are currently in place, and people are trying to achieve those levels of, especially around cybersecurity and protecting children's information. Go to the next slide. So I'm going to hand over to Al from Fortinet. So Laminar has been partnered with Fortinet for a long time, and part of this webinar is to talk about the technological changes that are coming. And one of the key things I find is with Fortinet and their product development, it's usually mirroring some of the changes that are going on in the market. I recently went to their conference in Las Vegas and got an insight into where their technology is going. That then sets our agenda about how we put together our solutions. But what I noticed about, especially in their product developments over the next 6 months that they're releasing, and Al's going to talk about it, it kind of shadows what we're having to deal with in most ICT organisations within the schools clients that we have. So I'm going to hand over to Al, who's then going to talk to you about some of these things. Some of this stuff's really important if you're an existing Fortinet customer because of hardware changes and things that are coming. Anyway, I'm going to hand over to Al, and thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Thank you very much. And thanks from myself too for joining us today. So as Marta said at the beginning, I'm Al Zucchini. I'm a channel systems engineer at Fortinet. In the next 15 minutes, I'll try to give you a practical, honest picture of where Fortinet sits today, what's end of life, what's new, what a modern, future-ready school network actually looks like. So let's get into it. So we launched a dedicated upgrade program to help customers move off legacy hardware before they reach end of support. This isn't just a product refresh. It's about making sure schools aren't left running appliances that no longer receive security updates, which is key. The key benefits are straightforward, I guess. Stronger security, better performance for modern workloads, and the ability to transfer existing service entitlements to new hardware, so you're not paying twice, essentially. Next slide. Here I can show you specifically what FortiGate models are reaching end of support by the end of this calendar year. If you recognize any of these in your environment, now is the time to start, thinking about a replacement. Running unsupported hardware in a school network isn't just a technical risk. It is a compliance and duty of care issue. Our upgrade program makes the transition commercially straightforward, but also from a technology perspective, you'll be backed by skilled people like the Laminar engineers and also the Fortinet engineers. Next slide, please. This is how the current desktop lineup compares to the older models. I personally put together this slide, and you can see in the G series model, the performance gains are significant, particularly when you look at the threat protection throughput, which is actually what matters when you're inspecting encrypted traffic. Notice also the changes around the SSL, VPN, and proxy support across the different generations. If your school has a standardized SSL, VPN tunneling technology for remote access, that will affect your upgrade path. And it's obviously worth a conversation with your Laminar and Fortinet team about probably moving to ZTNA, thinking about SASE and all that kind of stuff. Next slide, please. What I want to show you now is what's new in Fortinet Plan, and especially our new FortiOS 8.0, which brings some important capabilities. So you can see here, we introduced a redesigned dashboard experience with the concept of tabs, like you have in browser, for example. The look and feel, I guess, has been meaningfully improved over 7.6, which was already a big step ahead anyway. But more importantly, the dashboards are now contextual. So you can see network health, security events, and devices status in a single organized view, right? So you don't need to jump across different menus on the left column. So for a school IT team, managing everything from classroom switches to the internet edge, the kind of single pane visibility, I guess, matters enormously. Next slide. So from an SD-WAN perspective, thank you. From an SD-WAN perspective, we made quite a few announcements too. Again, they are around the visibility, so they're mainly graphical enhancements. You can see per application performance monitoring here. So again, for schools with multiple sites or WAN connections, you can now see in real time which applications are performing well and which aren't, without digging through logs and using third-party or other tools to actually go through these logs. This is, I think, particularly useful for identifying issues with cloud-based learning platforms like Canvas or even like a Google Classroom, for example. Next slide. The log details panel in 8.0 now includes an AI-generated summary of what the security event actually means. So FortiOS 8.0 inherited this capability from FortiAnalyzer, which is our log ingestion / security data lake platform. So instead of having a raw log entry that requires an experienced analyst to interpret, that you get a plain language explanation. So this is, again, another meaningful capability for school IT teams who are maybe generalists, or they need to deal with multiple vendors, and they are not dedicated security analysts. So it helps you, in a security incident scenario as well as in operational ones. Next slide. Building on that, this is the slide where probably I will spend a little bit more. So we have different FortiAI offering, and FortiAI-Protect is one of those, and it is very relevant to schools from my perspective. So in FortiOS 8.0, now the FortiGate can identify and categorize generative AI application, ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Copilot, Claude from Anthropic, and many others. And it can give you risk scores and usage visibility across your users. So you can briefly see, briefly which AI tools are being used, by whom, and whether they are sanctioned or not from a corporate perspective. So for schools navigating student AI usage policies, this is the control plane you need. It's built into the FortiGate. So you don't need any additional license for this visibility layer. Next slides. So let's talk about the education section. And I want to be direct here. Schools are high value targets for malicious users out there. And the threat landscape has changed significantly in the last 3 to 5 years. Next slide. These are not hypothetical scenarios. This confirms Australian schools have been hit by ransomware, phishing campaigns, and data breaches. And the ASD's own reporting confirms education is now one of the top targeted sectors. And the reason is simple. Schools hold large amounts of sensitive personal data, student records, health information, financial data. Look at the recent Canvas issues. And they typically have smaller IT teams relative to the size of their digital footprint. That combination makes malicious actors, makes all of these very attractive to malicious actors. So question isn't whether your school will be targeted. It will probably be, whether you're ready when it happens. Next slide. The second challenge that doesn't make headlines as often as the data breaches but it is as real, is data governance. So Australian schools are subject to the Privacy Act, state level legislation, and increasingly parent expectation around how student data is handled. Managing that data classification and audit trails manually is genuinely unsustainable for any kind of lean IT team. So with Fortinet and our data classification capabilities, we have all that across our stack of products. We have DLP on the firewall, on email, on endpoints, and in the cloud to help you with that. That's the difference between just a compliance checkbox and probably an actual platform that works. Next slide. This is what a traditional school campus network looks like, and most of you will recognize it, obviously. A core switch, some distribution switches, access layer, and a firewall at the perimeter, and maybe a separate proxy or web filter. The challenge with this architecture is that it was designed for a different time. When everything was on premise, when the perimeter was quite clear, and when the biggest threat was a student trying to access YouTube, for example. None of these assumptions hold anymore. Next slide. So before we move into the modern design, let me address performance directly. So we design and manufacture our own ASIC architecture, and every FortiGate runs a version of the ASIC. Every packet is processed directly in hardware, apart from probably the first few ones. Decide what components of the ASIC will take care of what, security, networking. So when you're getting a FortiGate, you're not choosing between performance and security. You can run full threat inspection, including SSL decryption, without the throughput penalty that can affect other architectures and other third-party vendors. For a school environment where every dollar counts, this price to performance advantage is real and actually measurable. So take us to a POC, maybe using the very capable Laminar team, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Next slide. The other thing is identity is in the new perimeter. So identity access management is very important. In school environment, you have students, staff, contractor, guests, and more IoT devices. And all of them, they need different levels of access to different resources. In our portfolio, IAM portfolio, we have FortiAuthenticator as the main IDP. You have FortiToken for your MFA, and then you have your FortiIdentity Cloud that brings everything into the cloud. And it gives you a centralized identity control plane. So one place where you define who get access to what. It can enforce consistent policies across Wi-Fi, wired access, VPN, and cloud applications. And again, if you're already using Active Directory or Google Workspace, this integrates cleanly. So our portfolio is fully third-party compatible also with other IDPs in case. Next slide. When something does happen, and statistically it unfortunately will, speed of response is everything. So the industry average time for initial compromise to containment is around 21 days. With our SecOps platform, things like FortiSIEM, FortiSOAR, FortiAnalyzer, all working together, that drops to under an hour. So we commission a third party to actually test this, and that's the result that we got. For a school, again, that's the difference between an incident that's contained and cleaned up over a weekend and a ransomware event that shuts down operation for weeks and makes the news. The platform uses AI and automated playbooks to triage alerts, correlate events across the environment, and suggest or even execute responses in an automated way without the need of a dedicated SOC team. Next slide. So data loss prevention is a capability that schools often think they can afford or can operationalize. FortiDLP is our endpoint DLP tool. Remember, DLP for data in transit is performed straight on the FortiGates. So FortiDLP is an AI-powered cloud-native solution that monitors data as it moves around. Through USB stick, to personal email, to cloud storage, and it can actually educate users in the moment when they are about to do something risky. For schools worried about students' data leaving the environment through staff or contractor devices, this gives you the visibility that probably you don't have today or you struggle with today. Next slide. One thing I want to highlight, you don't need to buy a separate DLP product to get started. As I said before, basic DLP for data in transit capabilities, including sensitivity label enforcement that integrates with, for example, Microsoft Purview, are built into FortiOS and FortiCASB, which is our cloud access security broker for SaaS applications. If you're already a Fortinet customer, you may already have this capability and not be using it. And the links on this slide point directly to the documentation, but it's easy to Google this information. So for schools running Microsoft 365, the integration with sensitivity labels is particularly powerful because it means your DLP policies follow the data, even when it moves to cloud storage. Next slide. So GenAI is in every school right now, whether it has been approved or not. FortiGuard Labs is our threat intelligence business unit that runs on top of all our products and has a dedicated AI application category for web filtering and app control. So you can apply granular policies, allow ChatGPT for staff, but not for year 7 students, block AI tools that don't meet your data privacy requirements, or simply get the visibility on what's being used before you decide on policies. This works through the existing FortiGate web filters, no new hardware, no new license if you have FortiGuard bundles. Next slide. And if your school uses Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace, FortiCASB gives you the API level visibility into what's happening in those environments. We're sharing file externally. Is sensitive data sitting in a publicly accessible SharePoint? Is someone downloading the entire student database to their personal Google Drive? This is where FortiCASB comes into play, and it is also included in our SASE offering and FortiClient EMS license. Next slide. Talking about switching, because network infrastructure underneath matters, our new FortiSwitch chassis AX9000G series is our new chassis platform. It is designed for large campus cores, 12.8 terabit per second of switching capacity, support for interfaces up to 100 gigabit, and in the future 400 gigabit, dual supervisors with active standby, logical architecture, full PoE BT and 90 watts per port for high power devices, including the Wi-Fi 7 access points, and then you have full redundancy across every component, including your 8 slots fans and 3 slots fan and 8 slot PSUs. Next slide. So this is where everything comes together, the new campus network. Compare this to the traditional design we looked at earlier. At the core, you had the FortiSwitch chassis. For the access layer and endpoint connectivity, you have stacked FortiSwitches, all running MCLAG, fully managed by the FortiGates or by one of our switch management products. Wi-Fi 7 access points, also managed through the FortiGate or not. Segmentation enforced natively through the access switches and the access points management. So when your student connects, the FortiGate automatically applies the right policy based on the identity without the need of a separate NAC product. So FortiGates run its own NAC product without additional licensing. Above the network layer, you have FortiAnalyzer for your XDR correlation, FortiMail to protect email, FortiSASE extending the same security policies to students working from home or school-issued devices off campus. And then you have FortiDLP watching for data exfiltration at the endpoint. FortiGuard Labs add the threat intelligence, updated in real time, leveraging AI and informed by Fortinet's global sensor network of over 600,000 devices. This is what it looks like a future-ready school network. And the journey doesn't need to be a full rip and replace. You can the Fortinet portfolio is designed to let you start where you are and build towards this architecture. So please reach out to Laminar to know more about all this, and we'll work together on your future network. Thanks, everyone. Back to you, Al.
Thanks, Al. And as I rush to unmute, thanks for that update. And I'm going to take over for the last part of this seminar and cover off I'll provide some strategies and some of the things we're doing to help people deal with some of these new challenges. I guess what we've, in talking with our clients, and we've been working in this industry a while, I think schools today are kind of, at a high level anyway, thinking about or considering how they run and operate their infrastructure. And there's kind of two paths really. One is to, build it in-house, and that's quite traditional. A lot of schools build their own infrastructure, operate it all, etc. And it typically meant they have their own, operations around infrastructure, servers, storage, network, firewalls, all that sort of thing. It was typically okay in the past because things were relatively simple. However, what we're also noticing now is the consideration of another path where we have, I call it supervised delegation, and that's where they fundamentally hand over operations of part of their infrastructure to specialised parties. For example, Laminar is doing this already for schools where we operate their infrastructure on their behalf. And that means the ICT team can focus on high-level strategy issues and oversight. And that is attractive to some people, but what I see happening is more path 2 being talked about. So I just wanted to make sure everyone understands that we offer that as a solution as well. Either way, an organisation has to choose the right tools for today's environment. They've got to keep pace with the change. They've got to start to develop an AI strategy and manage the risk that brings into an organisation and control more of the connected environment. Next slide. I just wanted to point out, I talked earlier about how there seems to be a disconnect between senior management and ICT team operations that I've noticed. And while I know that goes on and has been going on for a long time, a particular example, it was highlighted to me recently, I thought was interesting. And it kind of highlights where things can go wrong. So I guess what happened in this particular case is a client signed up for a monitoring system. I don't want to name names, but they signed up for a monitoring system, got the school on. It's a 3-year contract, but the monitoring promised after our support, and anyway, an event happened. So in that event, it meant that the operations centre that took control of the problem wasn't in Australia because it was after hours. So in an overseas country, someone was able to look at the event and have a look at all sorts of student and teacher information. We're able to look at the infrastructure and see, and actually delve into sensitive data. So that fundamentally breaks the school's governance rules. So at the high level, the school that sets some governance rules, but at the bottom end, they implemented something that broke it. And not only that, it was a 3-year contract, and they can't get out of it without, well, they can't get out of it. So it's now cost them a lot of money. So that's a simple case where upstairs not talking to downstairs, but I think that's also due to this technological creep and things getting out of control a little bit. All right, next slide, please, Marta. I want to talk about how we see the future, and some of you know that we've been helping out schools with infrastructure and things for like 17 years. So we build the network and the wireless infrastructure, put in the firewalls, and help people with moves, adds and changes in the network. You know, sometimes we get calls from our clients saying, "Can you help fix a problem," etc. So it's very infrastructure oriented. But we've also on the side been building this thing called Lumenir. Now, part of our engineering heritage is that when we make decisions to help our clients, it means that we make decisions based on knowledge, not on religion or a guess. So internally, we often ask ourselves, how do we know that's the case? How do we know? What's the data that backs that up? And that's, I guess, the core of our engineering heritage. In the modern world, it's very hard to get the sense of things without getting data. Now, in the old days, we used to have a network analyzer. You plug it in, it could tell you what was going on. You leave the network analyzer there, it collects data over time. You get perspective on what did happen and then fix problems. In today's world, our networking game, if you like, transgresses other levels, right up to layer 7 these days. So we built Lumenir, which is effectively a SIEM, to collect data and provides us the engineering knowledge to make decisions and to help our clients obviously react. Now, we built that 4 years ago. It's now, Lumenir is now a fully fledged, a fully developed SIEM, vSOC, SOAR, and AIOps service. It's delivered as a managed service. We've got quite a few private schools using it, and it might be of some benefit to some of you. But I thought I'd tell you a little bit about it. So fundamentally, we don't care what infrastructure you've got, but we absorb data out of your infrastructure and cloud infrastructure. And as Al presented earlier, the Fortinet AIOps sort of infrastructure is what our system is based on. It's actually, we use Fortinet for the SIEM, SOC, SOAR, and the AIOps. So basically, schools can take advantage of that technology without having to buy it and operate it, but they get a portal and then they can get the benefit of it. Again, if you're a Fortinet client, it'll just key straight in nicely. But if you've got other infrastructure, we really don't care. You can run, Cisco switches and whatever firewall you want. We can absorb that data and give you some, I guess, insight to what risks you're taking and what's going on. But also, if there was an event months ago, we know what happened. That also then gives us the engineering background to make some decisions and provide some advice to you as well. So with the headline of that slide, how we see the future, we see that tool is going to become more critical for our engineering effort, for us, to provide services to our clients. It also means that our clients can take advantage of it in their own right. They don't have to use us, they can just use this service. And a quick background is it's fully sovereign. All the data lives in Australia. The eyes on glass is always Australian. And our federal government clients really pushed us down this path. We have a DISP certification, so it means that all data, even if it's on a glass screen somewhere, has to be fully controlled. And that's what we offer our school clients, if that's an issue for you. It may not be a tick in the box right now, but I'm sure it will be. One of our other one of the things we're well known for in this game is we don't charge for ingestion-based pricing. So we built all the infrastructure ourselves, so we don't have the same cost infrastructure that other providers have. And I guess the way we've built it is to take advantage of not only Fortinet's AI tools, but other AI tools that we've got and will continue to develop and acquire that allows us to add value to our clients. So next slide, please, Marta. So again, this was touched on by Fortinet Al, and that is that with the time it takes to triage, react, fault find, etc., without these sort of tools, it can take a month or more. I've seen some things go out to like 90 days, but with these tools, we can make it hours, even minutes in some cases. The new SOAR type of technology allows us to automate some of that, so we can turn it into minutes. And we'll talk about that with our, we'll have more webinars on this in the future, but this ability, I think, is a bit of a game changer. And with the system that we've built, this is the Lumenir system. We took a different path. Our competitors, had a room full of screens and humans watching it. We have a data lake with AI watching, and it gets a human up when it sees something. So it has a very different cost structure. It is very quick to deploy, more adaptive, and it actually does a better job than the humans in many sites. So that whole triage, respond, report, detect, that loop that continually goes, we've fully automated. Next slide, please. So another thing that we'd like to talk to people about and offer, if you're interested, is if things are getting hard, we can help you run it. We're already doing it for some schools, and what I'm seeing is, schools struggle to justify building the in-house skills to maintain these sorts of things. Laminar has multiple NSEs and CCIEs and all those sorts of things, running infrastructure for a whole range of clients. And just to keep that skill base up to date, we have to spend 10% of their time just learning and keeping learning and adjusting. Vendors release new gear, as Al has just pointed out. There's a whole barrage of new technology coming all the time. We need to spend that time. Even in the AI space, we've already got folks working on this space, agentic teams, agentic AI. It's moving so fast. So how do you get those people? How do you retain them? Where do you find them, etc.? And the cost of those people is usually a discussion point people go on about. So an option is you can just leverage what we've got. And we've been doing this for a while. It's pretty straightforward. So in a simple terms, we can help you run it. If you can hand it over to us, and we'll run it for you. And that can help with, we can help with your strategy, the implementation, and ops. And we can take it on in a step-by-step approach as well. It doesn't have to be in one big bang. Next slide, please, Marta. So I've talked about this a little bit already, but the concept about keeping certified will become more and more important. Recently at the AISA conference in Brisbane, and it will come up in Sydney and Melbourne as well. AISA being like a group of organisations in Australia that are dealing with cybersecurity issues. So it's a user group effectively. It's pretty significant now. And one of the issues they're dealing with is government regulation. So one of our things is that we're maintaining our vigilance around maintaining certifications, and that goes to our engineers, our salespeople, even senior managers like myself, going overseas, getting trained, etc., is something that we're upping the pressure on effectively because we know regulation is coming. Now, how it comes, I'm not exactly sure, but in 2 to 3 years' time, I expect government regulation will, mainly in 4 main areas at this stage, but I think we'll see government regulation impact risk-taking, but also who can help out. So what we want to offer our clients who are interested is if you'd like us to come out and do a security review or an infrastructure or a security review, we're going to offer a limited number of complimentary reviews for Australian schools. So it's just a 1-hour session, and we'll work through your current environment and work with your team to come up with a strategy, a network security posture, a brief compliance assessment, look at some of the end-of-life issues around your security, but other technology as well, and provide you with some practical next steps. So book now. Handing over. Any questions?
Feel free to jump in and offer your questions, if you like, in the Q&A section as well. So if anybody has something they're thinking of but can't speak right now, they're in an environment where they can't share, feel free to type those into the Q&A, which is in the top ribbon there for the meeting. I did have one question, Alan, around the health check or the security posture or review you were talking about. How many of those are available for schools to take up as a free offering now?
We've allocated 10.
Okay. So there's a chance that everyone on the meeting doesn't miss out.
Yes. Hell of it true.
Good. Well, we're all available via email, and thanks, A1, for sharing Zucchini. It's really good, insightful stuff. And of course, A2, Kepper, thanks for just the insights. There's a few things I've picked up just in the landscape and what's coming. Yeah, really, really informative. If anyone else has any questions, now's the time, or we look forward, we can obviously catch up via email or another day and time via phone, or feel free to reach out. You're available as well, aren't you, Zucchini?
Yeah. You can stalk me on LinkedIn if you want, with my full name, which is Alessandro.
Okay, stalkers, there you go. There's your opportunity.
Thanks, Matt, also for organizing this.
Pleasure.
Okay, great. Then we're going to wrap up then. Thank you so much for coming.
Okay, bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.